Imagine Richard Gere, Hollywood's king of romance, who once made the world swoon with Pretty Woman, suddenly ditching the red carpet to dive into the drama-filled battlefield of politics. But hold on, his opponent is none other than Karoline Leavitt, a razor-sharp 27-year-old who wields a microphone like a weapon, ready to turn every attack into ashes. Who will stand tall in this war of words that's setting social media ablaze? On one side, a silver screen legend with a meditative gaze. On the other, a conservative firebrand dominating the White House. This isn't a discussion, it's a showdown. The studio of the American Pulse lights up, applause roaring like an opening signal. LED lights shift colors rapidly, the audience holds its breath, and cameras pan quickly, ready to capture anything that could become a historic moment. The host steps out, his smile somewhat forced. He seems to sense something unusual about tonight's show. Welcome to the American Pulse. Tonight we have two ideals clashing, Richard Gere, cinematic icon, versus Karoline Leavitt, America's youngest conservative star. Don't look away, the drama starts now. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. As the studio lights dim, spotlighting the host at center stage, his voice rings out with excitement. In tonight's program, let's dive into a dialogue about the key issues shaping American society. Every perspective matters. Let's get started. The audience claps enthusiastically, cheers mixing with whispers, as all eyes turn to Karoline Leavitt and Richard Gere at their opposing podiums. Half the audience is expecting an impassioned speech about compassion, the kind Gere often preaches in romantic films or at glamorous charity events. But tonight, Gere isn't here to play Hollywood's saint. He stands tall, his gaze sweeping the audience, lingering a second too long on Karoline Leavitt, his expression unwavering. Thank you all for being here. Gere begins, his voice warm and steady, like he's reciting lines from an old script. I'm here to talk about hope, about humanity, about the world we can build together. The audience claps eagerly, some raising their phones to record, ready to post his golden words on social media. But then, his tone drops, sharp and cold as a thin blade. But how can we build hope when this country is led by those who only parrot the words of a dictator? When a young woman, barely out of college, stands before the world to cover up the truth, the room falls silent. The camera pans quickly to Leavitt, capturing the moment she tilts her head slightly, her lips curling into an enigmatic smile. Gere continues, his voice now laced with sarcasm. Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary, is the embodiment of failure, a 27-year-old girl, never tested by the harsh realities of politics, tasked with polishing brutal policies. She's not a spokesperson, she's an actress, but this role is too big for her. The crowd murmurs, a few chuckles rising from the Hollywood supporters. Gere, fueled by the response, points at Leavitt, his eyes glinting with smugness. She pops up on TikTok, posting sound bites as slick as toothpaste ads, and calls it communication. She flaunts her lace dress, sorry, made in China, as if it's a national achievement. Meanwhile, her administration tramples human rights, divides the country, and turns America into a global laughingstock. The audience reacts more strongly. A group in the front row claps, but most of the room grows quiet, sensing the audacity of Gere's words. The host, sweat beading on his forehead, tries to interject. Thank you, Mr. Gere, but we should. But Gere ignores him, his voice soaring, like he's delivering a climactic scene in a movie. I've traveled the world, witnessed people fighting for freedom. I've stood with activists in Tibet, while Miss Leavitt was busy spinning fairy tales about condoms in Gaza. She doesn't represent America, she's a tool for a man who only knows how to shout into a microphone. Leavitt doesn't flinch, but her smile sharpens, like a blade honed for battle. The audience begins to notice, she's unshaken. Some whisper, will she hit back? The host, nearly desperate, tries to reclaim the mic. Mr. Gere, we need to hear from Miss Leavitt, but Gere, basking in the spotlight, raises a hand to stop him. I'm not done, he says, his voice dripping with drama. America deserves more than a girl who just follows orders. Leavitt is a symbol of collapse, a young generation manipulated by power and lies. Gere stands there, chest puffed out, confident he's landed a knockout blow. He returns to his seat, tossing Leavitt a triumphant glance, as if she's just a forgettable supporting role. The stage transforms into an arena. The spotlight beams on Karoline Leavitt as she rises, microphone in hand, her eyes blazing like an unquenchable fire. The audience, swept up by Gere's scathing speech, now falls silent, sensing electricity in the air. Gere, seated across, arms crossed, his smug expression lingering, as if he's pinned Leavitt as a naive girl. The host, sweat glistening on his brow, stammers, "Miss Leavitt, would you like to respond?" Leavitt tilts her head, her lips curving into a sharp, unflinching smile. "I'll set the record straight." The crowd gasps, some raising phones to live stream the moment on X. The camera zooms in, catching every detail, from the way she brushes her hair to the glance she shoots. Gere, like a fighter before a match. "Mr. Gere," she begins, her voice smooth but cutting like a freshly sharpened blade. "You say I'm too young, just a girl unfit for the political stage. Let me remind you, youth isn't a weakness, it's a weapon." The audience erupts in applause, especially from the younger crowd in the back. Gere furrows his brow, trying to maintain composure, but his hand tightens on the chair. "Youth," Leavitt continues, stepping forward, the spotlight highlighting her dress, "is why I'm not stuck in outdated ruts. At 27, I went from a White House intern to the youngest press secretary in American history. Do you know what I did 4 days after giving birth? I stood before the nation, held a press conference, and defended President Trump under attack. You call that inexperience. I call it dedication." The audience explodes, applause drowning out the show's background music. Gere, feeling the pressure, stands, his voice lowering, trying to regain control. "Miss Leavitt, dedication doesn't replace experience. Politics isn't a playground for those who just follow orders. You're just a tool, parroting someone else's words without grasping the consequences." Leavitt laughs, a short, sharp sound that silences the crowd in anticipation. "A tool, Mr. Gere? If I'm a tool, what are you? An actor basking in the glory of last century's films, thinking a few trips to Tibet give you the right to judge all of America." She turns to the audience, her voice rising. "Mr. Gere, at 27, what were you doing? Chasing bit parts or meditating to escape reality? Meanwhile, I'm here facing the media, the world, to protect the interests of the American people." The applause thunders. A group of young audience members chants, "Karoline, Karoline." The camera pans to Gere, catching him pursing his lips, searching for a comeback. "You're deflecting," Gere says, his voice now tinged with anger. "Your youth is just recklessness. You don't understand the responsibility of a spokesperson, that your words can cause harm." Leavitt shakes her head, her smile now tinged with pity. "Harm, Mr. Gere, the American people are the ones harmed, by inflation, by unsecured borders, by failed policies that Hollywood elites like you never care about. I'm young, but I understand what they need. And you? What do you understand beyond preaching compassion from your $1 million mansion?" She raises her hand, as if inviting the audience to answer. "Tell me, Mr. Gere, what did you do for Americans at 27 that gives you the right to call me naive?" The audience leaps to their feet, cheers shaking the studio. Gere opens his mouth, but his words are drowned out by applause. The host, nearly panicked, interjects. We need to calm down." But Leavitt, eyes locked on Gere, presses on. "Mr. Gere, my youth is my strength. I don't need 50 years to know how to fight. I learned from President Trump, a man who never bows. And you? What did you learn from your heartthrob roles, besides how to act for the camera?" The camera catches Gere sitting down, his eyes now vacant, as if realizing he's misjudged his opponent. Leavitt, center stage, raises the microphone like a warrior hoisting a flag. "I'm not done," she says, her voice low but commanding. "Mr. Gere wants to talk about experience. Let me show him what real experience looks like." The audience erupts again. The host, helpless, signals the camera to pan to Gere, but the spotlight stays on Leavitt. Gere, sensing he's losing ground, clears his throat, trying to pivot. "Leavitt, we should talk about compassion, about responsibility to the world." But Leavitt cuts him off, her eyes blazing like a torch. "Compassion, fine, Mr. Gere. But first, let me teach you about responsibility to this country." The room shakes with applause, and Gere for the first time, looks like an actor who's forgotten his lines on the main stage. Karoline Leavitt, standing in the eye of the storm, microphone glinting in her hand, looks like a general who's just won a battle. Across from her, Richard Gere tries to regain composure, but his initial smugness has faded, replaced by the tension of an actor thrown off script. The audience, phones raised for live streams, senses round 2 of this battle will be even fiercer. The host, voice cracking under pressure, tries to intervene. Let's move to a new topic. Mr. Gere, your thoughts on compassion in politics. Gere stands, smoothing his jacket, attempting to reclaim his Hollywood star poise. He takes a deep breath, his voice low but sharp, like he's playing a tragic lead. Compassion, he begins, is what America lacks, and Miss Leavitt, as the face of a ruthless administration, is proof of that absence. The audience falls silent, a few scattered claps rising from the Hollywood supporters. Gere points at Leavitt, his voice rising with restrained fury. I've spent decades fighting for human rights, from Tibet to refugee camps. I know what compassion is, but you stand behind the White House podium, justifying divisive policies, deporting immigrants, and ignoring the world's cries for help. You don't know compassion, you only know how to follow orders from a man obsessed with money. The camera pans to Leavitt, capturing her slight lean forward, lips pressed tight but eyes burning like a warrior accepting a challenge. The host, sensing the explosive atmosphere, stammers, Miss Leavitt, would you like to respond? Leavitt raises her hand, silencing him, her voice clear but razor sharp. Compassion, Mr. Gere, you want to talk about compassion? Let me show you how real compassion differs from your Hollywood act. The audience gasps, scattered applause spreading. Leavitt steps to the center of the stage, the spotlight highlighting her confident stance. Mr. Gere, you brag about your Tibet trips, but do you know Americans are struggling with skyrocketing gas prices? You talk about refugee camps, but have you visited towns bankrupted by illegal immigration? Or are you too busy at Malibu galas to notice? Gere furrows his brow, trying to interrupt. You're twisting my words. I've dedicated my life to the oppressed, and you just defend an administration that crushes the vulnerable. But Leavitt doesn't let him continue. She raises her hand, her voice slicing through the air like a knife. Crushing, Mr. Gere, the American people are the ones being crushed, by inflation, by crime, by failed policies you and your Hollywood friends never face. You call that compassion, I call it hypocrisy. The audience erupts, cheers echoing, especially from the Trump supporters in the back. The camera catches a young audience member, holding a Caroline for President sign. Gere, sensing he's losing ground, raises his voice. You have no right to talk about morality. I've stood for freedom, while you back an administration that shuts borders and abandons refugees. Leavitt smiles, but this smile is no longer gentle. It carries the force of a storm. Freedom, Mr. Gere, you talk about freedom from your $1 million mansion, while Americans lose jobs because of open borders. You pose with activists, post on Instagram, and call it dedication. Me? I stand before the world, defending policies that bring jobs, security, and a future for Americans. That's real compassion, not the framed compassion of your editing room. Applause surges, the audience leaping to their feet, some shouting Leavitt's name. Gere tries to respond, his voice trembling. You don't understand the meaning of compassion, you're just part of a political machine. But Leavitt shakes her head, her tone now laced with pity. A machine? Mr. Gere, the real machine is Hollywood, where you and your friends live in a luxury bubble, preaching morality without knowing what Americans need. I may not have a mansion, but I have a heart for this country. The audience goes wild, cheers drowning out the background music. The camera pans to Gere, capturing him sitting down, hands clenched, eyes vacant like an actor, abandoned by his director. Leavitt, center stage, raises the microphone like a victorious warrior. Mr. Gere, she says, her voice low but commanding, if you want to talk about compassion, start by listening to Americans, not by taking photos in Tibet. The host, nearly desperate, interjects, we need to change topics. But the audience doesn't care, continuing to clap. Gere, sensing he's lost this round, clears his throat, trying to pivot to the media. Miss Leavitt, you talk about listening, but all you do is spread lies. But Leavitt, eyes locked on him, smiles. Lies? Mr. Gere, let me show you what the truth looks like. The studio feels like a forge, stage lights flickering like the pulse of a high-stakes duel. Karoline Leavitt, at the center, microphone glinting like a pen scripting victory. After 2 rounds of debate, she's turned Richard Gere from a Hollywood icon into an off-key actor, his eyes now flickering with unease, like a star pushed out of the spotlight. The audience, phones raised for live streams, holds its breath for round 3, knowing this will be a media explosion shaking social networks. The host, sweating profusely, tries to restore order. Both have made sharp points. Next, let's discuss the media, its role in politics. Gere stands, adjusting his tie, attempting to reclaim the charisma that once swayed the world on screen. But his voice, though deep, carries a bitter edge. The media, he declares, like lecturing at a seminar, is the foundation of truth. But Miss Leavitt has turned it into a circus, spreading misinformation to hide her administration's failures. Gere points at Leavitt, his voice rising, like a prosecutor in a courtroom drama. You talk about condoms in Gaza, a fabricated story that made the world laugh. You post short TikTok videos and call it information. That's not media, it's a scam. You're the spokesperson for deceit, and Americans are losing trust because of you. The camera pans to Leavitt, capturing her slight head tilt, lips curving into a sharp smile, like an artist about to deliver a masterful performance. The host, voice trembling, interjects, Miss Leavitt, would you like to? But Leavitt raises her hand, silencing him, her voice clear and powerful like a triumphant anthem. Deceit, Mr. Gere. You want to talk about truth? Let me show you how modern media outshines your outdated interviews. The audience erupts, applause rolling like a tidal wave. Leavitt steps forward, the spotlight highlighting her unyielding presence. Mr. Gere, you call my TikTok videos a scam. I call them power. Last week my speech on X got 2.3 million views, 500,000 shares. Do you have numbers like that for your latest talk? Or do you still think media is sitting on a couch with a printed newspaper? Gere tries to interrupt, his voice shaking with indignation. You're manipulating public opinion. Those numbers aren't truth, they're polish. I've worked with real journalists who ask tough questions, not influencers chasing likes. But Leavitt doesn't let him continue. She laughs, a sharp, crisp sound like a gunshot. Real journalists. Mr. Gere, you mean biased papers, TV shows that edit your words to fit Hollywood's narrative. I answer directly on X, no editors, no scripts, to millions of Americans. The audience roars with laughter, cheers surging. A group of young fans holds up a #Caroline Rules sign. Gere, feeling cornered, raises his voice. You spread misinformation. The Gaza story is proof, you fabricated it to distract the public. Leavitt shakes her head, her eyes glinting with mockery. Fabricated, Mr. Gere. I clarified the Gaza story in a press briefing with public documents on the White House website. Did you check? Or were you too busy watching CNN, where they never question your $1 million Malibu parties? The applause thunders, the audience standing. Gere tries to respond, his voice now tinged with desperation. You don't understand the media's responsibility. I've used my voice to fight for human rights, while you just create drama online. But Leavitt raises her microphone, her voice ringing like a declaration of war. Drama? Mr. Gere, I create dialogue. I speak to the young generation in their language. 70% of people under 30 get news from social media, per Pew Research. Who do you speak to? Besides the aging fans of an officer and a gentleman. Leavitt continues, her voice sharp but captivating. The media isn't a dusty studio with an outdated microphone, Mr. Gere. It's connection, transparency, the power of truth witnessed by millions. I do that every day, with 3 million followers on X. What do you have? A magazine interview no one reads. The audience goes wild, some shouting, Karoline, Karoline. The camera catches Gere sitting down, hands clenched, eyes vacant like a director just yelled cut. Leavitt center stage, raises the microphone like an artist completing a masterpiece. Mr. Gere, she says, her voice low but commanding. If you want to understand the media, download TikTok, but don't mess up your hair. The host tries to interject, we need to talk about policy. But the audience doesn't care, continuing to clap. Live streams on X, exploding with the hashtag #Gere outdated trending globally. Gere, completely silent, looks at Leavitt as if she's stolen his starring role. Leavitt, sensing victory, smiles, her gaze sweeping the audience like a promise. Policy, she says, voice brimming with challenge. Let me show you how I defend America. The stage lights blaze, reflecting Karoline Leavitt's victorious fire. Gere, once a Hollywood icon, now looks like a defeated warrior, his eyes clouded, hands clenched as if grasping at fading glory. The host, voice breaking like a snapped string, tries to regain control. Mr. Gere, Miss Leavitt, let's talk about policy. How do the current administration's policies impact America? Gere stands, jacket rumpled, attempting to reclaim the poise of an activist who once swayed the world. But his voice, though steady, betrays desperation. Policy, he says, like reciting a memorized speech, must serve people. But Miss Leavitt's administration, with its brutal policies, is tearing apart America's soul. The audience falls silent. A few weak claps rising from the Hollywood supporters. Gere points at Leavitt, his voice trembling with fury. You justify mass deportations, border closures and trade wars that wreck the global economy. You're the face of an administration that only divides, abandons the vulnerable and puts personal gain above human rights. You're not a spokesperson, you're a cover for cruelty. The camera pans to Leavitt, capturing her slight nod, lips pressed tight but eyes blazing like a warrior ready to land the final blow. The host, nearly falling off his chair, stammers. Miss Leavitt, do you? But Leavitt raises her hand, her voice ringing out, powerful as a victorious proclamation. Cruelty, Mr. Gere? You call protecting America cruelty? Let me show you how President Trump's policies, and my role, are saving America. The audience erupts, applause roaring like a stormy sea. Leavitt steps forward, the spotlight highlighting her unshakable pride. Mr. Gere, you criticize mass deportations? That's not division, it's security. Last year, 2.5 million illegal border crossings were recorded, for the Department of Homeland Security. Our policies cut that by 30%, bringing safety to American families. You call that cruelty? I call it responsibility. Gere tries to interrupt, his voice shaking. You're destroying the American dream. Those immigrants seek freedom, but you and Trump just build walls. But Leavitt doesn't let him continue. She laughs, a sharp sound like a dagger. The American dream, Mr. Gere, the American dream is jobs for citizens, not open borders letting criminals flood in. Thanks to Trump's policies, unemployment dropped to 3.8%, the lowest in a decade, per the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Got any numbers to counter that? Or do you just cry for freedom from your mansion? The audience roars with laughter, cheers echoing. A group holds up a Trump 2024 sign. Gere, feeling cornered, raises his voice. You talk about jobs, but Trump's trade wars are killing the economy. Tariffs on China drive up prices, and the people are suffering. Leavitt shakes her head, her eyes glinting with mockery. Trade wars, Mr. Gere, that's a trade victory. Our tariffs brought in $80 billion in revenue, per the Department of Commerce, and forced China to negotiate fairly. While you were busy posing with activists, we brought manufacturing jobs back to Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Do you know 500,000 jobs were created? Or were you too busy re-watching Pretty Woman to catch the news? Gere tries to respond, his voice now tinged with desperation. You just parrot Trump's numbers. You don't understand policy's impact on the poor, on human rights. But Leavitt raises her microphone, her voice ringing like a verdict. Human rights, Mr. Gere, I understand the poor better than you think. I grew up in New Hampshire, in a working-class family, not a Hollywood mansion. My role is to communicate policies that help Americans, from tax cuts, to job growth, to border security. What do you do for the poor, besides red carpet speeches? The audience goes wild, some shouting, Caroline, the camera catches Gere sitting down, his hands trembling slightly, eyes vacant like an actor, abandoned by his director. Leavitt continues, her voice powerful yet captivating. Mr. Gere, Trump's policies are for America, and I'm proud to bring that message to millions. You call me a cover-up? No, I'm the one exposing the truth that Hollywood elites like you never want to hear. The audience erupts, applause drowning out the background music. Leavitt stands center stage, raising the microphone like an artist completing a masterpiece. Mr. Gere, she says, her voice low but commanding, if you want to talk about policy, come to the American people, not from the red carpet, from reality. The host, nearly fainting, interjects, thank you both for your very strong points. Gere, completely silent, looks at Leavitt as if she's stolen his entire career. The audience leaps to their feet, cheers roaring like a tsunami, overpowering the background music trying to close the show. Leavitt, center stage, waves with a victorious smile like a star who's just delivered a defining performance. Across from her, Gere sits motionless, eyes lost, like a forgotten legend in front of millions of viewers. The camera pans over the audience, capturing excited faces, phones raised for live streams, and makeshift signs reading Caroline rules. The host, drenched in sweat, tries to wrap up with a faltering voice. Thank you Mr. Gere, Miss Leavitt, and our audience, a night to remember. But no one pays attention. The crowd keeps chanting Leavitt's name, some Hollywood supporters quietly leaving their seats, eyes dazed as if they've just watched their idol crumble. Gere, with the demeanor of an actor cut from the script, stands and silently exits to the wings, not offering a goodbye. Meanwhile, Leavitt is mobbed by the crowd, reporters jostling for interviews, and fans raising phones for photos. The stage now belongs entirely to her. As the broadcast cuts to commercials, the battle between Leavitt and Gere is only beginning to spread. On social media, X erupts like a volcano. Hashtags #Caroline wins and #Gere downed rocket to global trending in minutes. One user posts, Karoline Leavitt just turned Richard Gere into a supporting actor in his own movie, with a clip of Leavitt's final blow. Come to the American people, not from the red carpet. The post gets 100,000 likes in under an hour. A popular TikToker quickly makes a dance video with subtitles. When Caroline knocks out Gere like a superhero, it hits 3 million views before dawn. Memes spread at lightning speed. One edited image shows Gere with a sad face, captioned when you think you're a Buddhist but a 27-year-old teaches you a political lesson. Another casts Leavitt as Wonder Woman, wielding a microphone like a shield, with Gere as the defeated foe. Trump supporters on X dub her Queen of Clapbacks, while some even suggest she run for Senate. A humorous post reads Karoline Leavitt just made Gere meditate for life to forget this, with crying laughing emojis, racking up 50,000 shares. Mainstream media can't stay quiet. Fox News, in its evening broadcast, runs the headline, Karoline Leavitt crushes Hollywood. A lesson for the elites. A network commentator praises, Leavitt didn't just beat Gere, she showed Hollywood their time is up. Americans want people like her, not red carpet sermons. CNN, reluctantly acknowledges Leavitt's strength. A journalist writes, whether you agree with her or not, Leavitt dominated the stage with rare confidence and sharpness for 27. MSNBC, leaning progressive, slams Leavitt as Trump's aggressive mouthpiece, but admits she scored media points against a seasoned opponent like Gere. Hollywood stars jump in, heating up the feud. John Voight, a longtime Trump supporter, posts on X, Karoline Leavitt is the true voice of America. Gere should learn to listen before he speaks. The post gets 200,000 likes. Conversely, Mark Ruffalo, a progressive actor, expresses disappointment. I respect Richard Gere for his compassion, but this debate was a mistake. Leavitt turned it into her stage. Some younger stars, like Zendaya, stay silent, but sources say they're shocked at how Leavitt overpowered an icon like Gere. Meanwhile, the Trump administration quickly capitalizes on Leavitt's victory. President Trump, never missing a chance, posts on X, Karoline Leavitt just silenced Hollywood. She's America's warrior, defending truth and our policies. Thank you, Karoline. The post gets 1.2 million likes, and thousands of comments praising Leavitt. Trump allies, Like Senator Elise Stefanik, chime in, Karoline is the future of the conservative movement, smart, strong, and fearless in a fight. Leavitt, right after the show, appeared in a brief interview on Tucker Carlson Tonight. With a radiant smile she shared, "I didn't come to argue with Mr. Gere, I came to speak the truth. The American people deserve to hear what President Trump is doing for them." When asked about Gere, she deftly responded, "I respect his career, but politics isn't a Hollywood movie. It needs reality, not emotions." The interview garnered 5 million online views, solidifying Leavitt's status as a rising political star. While Leavitt shone, Gere faced a storm of criticism. Conservative media mocked him as a failed Buddhist with headlines like "Richard Gere thought he could take down Karoline Leavitt, but he was wrong." Some of Gere's fans on X expressed disappointment. "I love Pretty Woman, but why did he dive into politics like this?" Gere tried to salvage his image with an interview on a progressive podcast, where he defended himself. "I just wanted to protect human rights and the truth." But the interview was overshadowed by Leavitt memes, with a clip of his awkward moment hitting 2 million views on TikTok. The online community remained ablaze. A group of college students launched the Karoline Challenge, urging young people to post videos mimicking Leavitt's takedowns of Gere, using the hashtag #RoastLikeCaroline. One standout video showed a 20-year-old girl posing as Leavitt, saying, "Mr. Gere, if you want to talk policy, step out of your mansion first." It racked up 1 million views. Meanwhile, YouTube analysis dissected Leavitt's every word, with channels like Patriot Pulse calling her Trump's secret weapon. Progressive channels like the Young Turks criticized Leavitt, but admitted she won the media game. The short-term fallout of this clash marked a turning point for both figures. Leavitt, from a young press secretary, became an icon of the conservative movement. Major TV networks, from Fox News to Newsmax, invited her non-stop, and she received speaking offers for political events in Texas and Florida. Some commentators even predicted she could run for the House soon. On TikTok, videos praising Leavitt kept spreading, with one user writing, "Karoline didn't just beat Gere, she showed the world how strong young conservatives are." Conversely, Gere faced an image crisis. Conservative outlets branded him a has-been actor, and even some progressive allies distanced themselves. A Guardian journalist wrote Gere meant well, but he picked the wrong opponent and stage. His fans on Instagram tried to defend him, but mocking comments from Leavitt supporters overwhelmed them. Gere quietly withdrew from political debates, focusing on charity projects, but the shadow of his loss to Leavitt lingered. A source close to him revealed he regretted joining the show. The clash also ignited discussions about America's polarization. Analysts on CNN and Fox News agreed that Leavitt leveraged the event to bolster the Trump administration's image, while Gere unwittingly became a symbol of Hollywood's disconnect from ordinary people. A Politico article noted, "Leavitt didn't just beat Gere, she won over a generation of young viewers seeking voices grounded in reality over moral lectures." As the media frenzy subsided, Leavitt posted on X, "Thank you, Mr. Gere, for giving me a chance to speak the truth. Wishing you peace, maybe in a new movie," with a winking emoji. The post got 1.5 million likes, with thousands of comments calling her the meme queen. One user wrote, "Karoline didn't just knock out Gere, she wrote the script for this battle." Meanwhile, Gere from his Malibu mansion, perhaps gazed at the ocean, wondering what led him into Leavitt's arena. But somewhere, on X, TikTok, and in the hearts of millions of Americans, Leavitt had become an icon, not just a press secretary, but the voice of a generation ready to take on anyone, from Hollywood to Washington. The showdown at the American Pulse had ended, but its echoes lingered like an unfinished symphony. Karoline Leavitt, from a young press secretary, rose to an invincible icon, turning a TV stage into an arena where she raised the flag of victory. Richard Gere, once a Hollywood legend, now stood as a faded shadow, his stardom extinguished by Leavitt in 4 razor-sharp rounds. This battle wasn't just drama. It was a milestone etching the mark of a new generation and exposing the gap between political reality and red carpet illusions. Leavitt, with a smile as bright as the sun, turned potential defeat into glory. She didn't just outmaneuver Gere with tight arguments on youth, compassion, media, and policy. She rewrote the narrative of young conservative strength. From a girl mocked as Trump's puppet, she became a blazing inspiration, igniting faith in young people that they could confront anyone, be it a Hollywood star or seasoned politician. Her X speeches continued drawing millions of views, with one user commenting, "Karoline doesn't just speak, she makes history." Political event organizers chased her, and whispers of a Senate future began to spread. Leavitt, with her intelligence and relentlessness, became the emblem of an America determined to reclaim its voice. Conversely, Gere sank into silence, like a protagonist forgotten by the script. His loss to Leavitt not only damaged his reputation, it exposed his disconnect from the real issues facing Americans. His once admired human rights speeches now seemed hollow next to Leavitt's razor-sharp arguments. He withdrew from public debates, focusing on independent films and charity, but the shadow of defeat clung to him. A Variety article remarked, "Gere may be a legend on the silver screen, but in the political arena, he was no match for Leavitt." His fans tried to defend him on social media, but their voices were drowned out by a flood of memes and mocking videos. The legacy of this battle stretched far beyond the two figures. It marked a turning point in how Americans view politics and media. Leavitt, with her ability to connect directly via X and TikTok, proved that modern media belongs to those who speak boldly, unfiltered by Hollywood or traditional press. She became a role model for a fearless younger generation craving leadership. Meanwhile, Gere's failure sent a clear message: the era of moral lectures from elites is over. Americans want practical solutions, not lofty dreams. A memorable moment that capped the battle came when Leavitt, in a later press briefing, was asked about Gere. With a mischievous smile, she replied, "I watched An Officer and a Gentleman, great film, but politics needs more than a pretty role." The quip, shared on X with 2 million likes, was a final dagger, relegating Gere to a distant memory. Leavitt, in contrast, stood firm like a mountain, ready to face any challenge ahead. The battle at the American Pulse wasn't just a victory, it was a declaration that Karoline Leavitt and her generation were ready to shape America's future, from the TV stage to the hearts of millions. The story of the showdown between Karoline Leavitt and Richard Gere on the American Pulse deeply reflects the polarization and power of media in today's American society, where politics, culture, and social media intertwine fiercely. Leavitt, with her sharpness and ability to leverage X and TikTok to connect directly with millions, showed how the younger generation uses technology to shape public opinion, like when she cited 2.3 million views of her X speech to dismantle Gere. In contrast, Gere, with his traditional Hollywood image, represented an elite seen as out of touch, especially when he failed to grasp issues like inflation or border security, that Leavitt emphasized with data: 2.5 million illegal crossings, 3.8% unemployment rate. This clash wasn't just a personal debate. It was a symbol of the collision between new and old media, between the reality of the people and red carpet ideals. The explosion of the hashtag #Caroline wins and memes mocking Gere showed how social media can turn a moment into a movement, shaping public perception. The takeaway: in real-life America, learn to communicate effectively and authentically, like Leavitt, by mastering technology and speaking the language of the community you want to influence. Don't rely solely on reputation or lofty ideals, like Gere, but understand real issues from the economy to security, and use data to bolster your arguments. Above all, listen to the people's voice instead of preaching from afar. Success comes from connection, not status. Subscribe to the channel to catch more epic showdowns like Karoline Leavitt knocking out Richard Gere. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next drama-filled video at the American Pulse.